I'm Chris. Our activity today is all about the City of London. Whether you've been to London or not, we're about to prepare a guided tour for visitors to show them the sights and landmarks of this wonderful city. So, we'll be pretending that we're at the top of a double-decker bus driving around the City of London, pointing out the things we pass to visitors, and we may end up turning this into a piece of writing. So, we're about to visit London. Our first destination is Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament on the banks of the River Thames. Not many people know that Big Ben is the name of the bell, not the tower. We'll travel now across the park to the magnificent Buckingham Palace, home of Her Majesty the Queen and the British royal family. Our next destination is on the banks of the River Thames, and it's the London Eye. This gives people magnificent views across the city. We'll continue up the river for our final port of call, which is the world famous Tower Bridge. The road on this bridge lifts up to allow the tall ships to pass through. I'm now going to put some pictures together showing all of the things we saw in London, beginning with Big Ben, the mighty tower with the bell named Big Ben, the world famous Buckingham Palace, home of the Queen, on the banks of the river, the London Eye, which gives stunning views across the magnificent city, and of course Tower Bridge, across the River Thames with the road that lifts up. I'm now going to record my voice on the screen and play back. I'm going to imagine that I'm on the bus, guiding people around, so I will try to make things sound interesting and to point out all of the landmarks for the visitors. Our first destination is the mighty Tower of Big Ben, although not many people know Big Ben is actually the name of the bell. Our first destination is the mighty Tower of Big Ben, although not many people know Big Ben is actually the name of the bell. The next stop on our tour is the world famous Buckingham Palace, home of Her Majesty the Queen and the British royal family. The next stop on our tour is the world famous Buckingham Palace, home of Her Majesty the Queen and the British royal family. One destination which is a must-see on any trip to London is the London Eye. This huge wheel gives visitors stunning and spectacular views. One destination which is a must-see on any trip to London is the London Eye. This huge wheel gives visitors stunning and spectacular views. Our visit to London ends at Tower Bridge. This stunning bridge crosses the River Thames and the road lifts to allow the tall boats and ships to sail through. Our visit to London ends at Tower Bridge. This stunning bridge crosses the River Thames and the road lifts to allow the tall boats and ships to sail through. It's time for you to join in now. I'm going to say some short sentences about the pictures and I will miss off some words at the end, and that's your turn to call out with whatever word you think fits. If you see my hands go to my ears, it means I'm expecting you to call out. So I will begin. The first destination on the trip is Big Ben. It's a huge tower but not many people know Big Ben is the name of the... The next destination is Buckingham Palace, home of Her Majesty the Queen and the British Royal. No trip to London would be complete without a trip on the London Eye. This huge wheel gives visitors stunning... The final destination is Tower Bridge, crossing the River Thames. The road lifts to allow the ships to sail. Next activity, you will need a partner to speak to and to listen to. So if you already have a partner, you're ready to go. But if your teacher wants to pause the video and make sure people are in pairs, now's the time. When you are in pairs, decide who is going first. You're number 1. Who's going second is number 2. Hands up, number 1, and hands up, number 2. So we're about to begin and we'll take it in turns to describe the famous landmarks to our partner. Number 1, we'll talk about Big Ben. Number 2, Buckingham Palace. Number 1, the London Eye. And number 2, the Tower Bridge. So it's over to you now. And number 1, go first. Tell your partner about Big Ben now. Number 2, Buckingham Palace. Go! Number 1, the London Eye. And number 2, Tower Bridge. I'm going to try to do the whole thing now. I am going to imagine I'm at the top of a bus full of passengers listening to what I have to say, and I'm going to guide them around London. In my hand, I may have an invisible microphone, and if you use such a thing, it can be very helpful, but you don't have to. So, my turn. Welcome to London. Our tour begins at Big Ben, a famous clock and tower, but not many people know Big Ben is actually the name of the bell. We move along now to Buckingham Palace. This magnificent, majestic building is the home of Her Majesty the Queen and the British royal family. Our trip takes us now to the London Eye, on the banks of the famous River Thames. This huge Ferris wheel gives visitors stunning, spectacular and remarkable views across the famous city. Our tour concludes at Tower Bridge. This iconic bridge is stunning and photographed by visitors from around the world. It crosses the River Thames and the road lifts to allow the boats to sail through. Thank you for visiting London. I hope you come again. Your teacher will help choose somebody, or maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 people to have a go at giving the whole presentation. You might stand up, you might come to the front, or you can stay seated. Your job is to give the visitors detailed information about all of the wonderful landmarks they're going to see. The pictures will be on the screen, so if your teachers pause this video, they can choose somebody to welcome people to London. I would like to see if I can do that without looking at the pictures. So I can imagine the pictures in my mind, but I'm not going to look, and we'll see if I can do it. Here goes. Welcome everyone to London. The first thing we see is the Tower of Big Ben. It's a tall tower with a huge clock. Oh, and the bell is called Ben, not the clock. The next thing we'll see is Buckingham Palace, home of the Queen, and the famous marching soldiers. After that, it's the London Eye. It's a big wheel on the banks of the river that people ride on to get great views across the city. The final thing we see is Tower Bridge. This bridge lifts, the road rises to let the boats sail through. Thank you for visiting London town. I'd like to see if one of you could do this. You could even do it in your pairs, but if somebody would like to come to the front, stand in front of the screen so you can't see the pictures, and tell everyone all of the sights they will enjoy in London. And your teacher can pause the video whilst someone is chosen and they give all of the information people need. Our final task is writing. You've already had enough practice and will know exactly what to write. So this is your writing job. Imagine that the normal person that welcomes people to London on the bus is off and they're busy elsewhere. And your job is to write a script for a new person to know what to say. So you will need to tell them the words they'll need to use about Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, London Eye and the Tower Bridge, and that's your quick and busy writing job. And your teacher can pause the video to leave the pictures on the screen. Thank you for joining in today and helping us all learn about the famous City of London.